Good morning, everyone. My name is Saule Imanova. I'm an investment professional and CAMCA Fellow 2015. I'm privileged to moderate my distinguished panel, which brings wealth of experience investing globally and regionally. I'm also thrilled that this topic is early in the agenda. We used to be at the very end of the 2 days. But as was highlighted by all three distinguished speakers before, investments, foreign direct investments, is important as ever. We are also maybe seeing some shifts in the traditional FDI paradigm. And at the same time, next year will be 35-year independence jubilee year for all of our CAMCA countries. So I would like to unpack a bit more about regional investments and ask my distinguished panel, is a private sector in our countries mature enough already to take the capital out and regionally and invest in our neighboring countries? So hopefully this will be an interesting discussion for all of you. And I would like to kick off the panel by asking my fellow panelists, spend 1 minute each introducing yourselves and speak about the topics that are important for you so that later on the people can approach you on those. Please, Randolph.
Thank you. I'm Randolph Koppa. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trade and Development Bank of Mongolia, one of the largest privately held commercial banks in the country, which has focused on largely corporate and international activities for the past 35 years. Now we're in our 35th year. I'm also active in the community and I'm currently serving as the chairman of the board of the American Chamber of Commerce in Mongolia.
My name is Umid Aripdjanov. I'm a CAMCA Fellow 2014, partner of the Central Asian law firm Centil. We work with infrastructure, foreign direct investments, project finance, and other deals in Central Asia.
Welcome, Umid. Dulguun?
Yes, I'm Dulguun Baasandavaa, the head of the Mongolian Stock Exchange, and professionally, I'm an economist.
My name, sorry, too loud, right? Hi guys, my name is Mikheil Nibladze. I represent Cerberus Frontier, which is an emerging market platform for US-based alternative investment firm, Cerberus Capital Management, with assets under management of $65 billion. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Big voice, Mikheil. Welcome. I would like to start with Randolph, turning to you. You spent 21 years in this country. I heard you speaking as part of the Mongolian delegation last year in Singapore, promoting heavily Mongolia for investments. So maybe it would be interesting for the audience to hear from you your insights, how the country evolved over 21 years, how it was back then, and what's Mongolian identity today. What does it offer? And of course, the topic to invest, which sectors to invest, where to look at.
Well, thank you. Yes, I have been here since the end of 2004. I came on a short-term assignment to help in the sort of restructuring of the, let's say, the activities of Trade and Development Bank after it had been sold from state ownership to private ownership. And one thing has led to another, and I've stayed. And going back at that time, just thinking of the bank, it was at the end of 2003, it was about a $200 million bank. It is now about a $4.2 billion bank. So if you do the math, it has grown 15% annually for the past 20 years, 21 years. So that kind of tells you what the experience has been, and I don't take any credit for that. It's just the way the economy has been going in that time. And this building we're sitting in didn't exist as an open hotel at the last CAMCA meeting in 2015. And now all around from here to the square and in the center of town, you see many completed and still under construction office buildings. High-rise apartments were not in this town 20 years ago. So this has been a remarkable change. And of course, the economy has been driven largely by the mineral sector. Major investments have occurred. The most noteworthy, of course, is the copper mine called Oyu Tolgoi in the south, which is run by the Rio Tinto mining company. And it has helped drive a lot of economic growth. It's now producing ore that, as it comes up from the underground portion, onto full stream will be a factor of 25 to 30% of the GDP of this country. So that's been driving the growth, and it's helped with the whole support of the economy, and has been an example of the right way to do things in terms of mining practices, which is always a sensitive issue in a country that is endowed with mineral resources. So the economy has been doing very well up and down over the years. It's had a good cycle, and now there are many opportunities, and it's moving into a new phase. Obviously, mineral sector is still important, but we're now looking at, as was mentioned earlier this morning, the renewable energy, the need for tourism to be improved, and other infrastructural activities. We've got a potential with a new uranium mine going to be coming on stream. So a number of very positive things. But as I've observed, and even though the private sector is now, private sector firms represent about 80% of the business activity or the contribution to GDP, there still is a tendency for the government to try to, maybe it's the central planned economy background that many of the countries in CAMCA have had from their prior connection with the former Soviet Union. That continues, but the mindset has always been the government should be able to plan and do the business activities that they want to promote. And we've found that often leads to problems. And we've been probably the change in administration that we're going through now in the government of Mongolia is indicative of some of that. We've had a little bit of stagnation in foreign direct investment. We've had some problems now with the drop in coking coal prices, some budget shortfalls. So there are some critical challenges. As it relates to my role as in the AmCham, I'm the chairman this year, and I was just recently in Washington visiting with the administration, of which, of course, there's some new elements involved. However, the visit to the State Department highlighted three things that they were very important from the U.S. perspective, and as this grouping includes U.S. supported activities, either from the Rumsfeld Foundation or others, the State Department underscored that it is committed to the strategic partnership that it has with Mongolia, entered into about a year ago. And it is very interested in three things. It's very interested in clean energy development, critical minerals, and digital economy. Now, I'd like to kind of use those themes because I'd like to now move on to how we see Mongolia's opportunities, not only as it relates to the U.S. State Department's indicated interests, but also the potential for for the country and for, in this regard, cooperation with other countries in the CAMCA region. So I'd like to now, because it's the time of the day, just before lunch, people are getting maybe sleepy. I'm going to try to turn it to you, and we're going to have a test. Could I cue the slides, please? This is going to be a test with the theme of what is it? Okay? That's not my slide. I don't have the video, please. That's it. Thank you. So it's a time for greater connectivity. And I think, the theme of this conference is envisioning the cooperation, envisioning connectivity. And I want us to envision what could happen together with a few questions.
Next slide, please. Next slide.
I got it. So, sorry. Up. Now, what is it? You already saw the first answer, but what is it? Here we have each of the countries of CAMCA plus Turkey for some reasons to be explained. And there's a number next to each. What does this number represent? Anybody? Louder? I didn't hear the answer, I'm sorry.
Oops.
Membership. No, maybe it's this. Is it the number of times plov is eaten per week in each country? I don't think so because if we go back one, I don't know who would beat Uzbekistan. Could Turkey really beat Uzbekistan? No, I don't think so. So it's not that. Is it perhaps the number of predicted medals each country expects in the Asian Games this next year? No? Could be? Well, I'll cut to the chase. It's the number of CAMCA countries with which each individual country has a locally based airline with direct flight connections to any of the other countries. So Mongolia, we have one small airline with an Embraer 90 that flies a few times a week to Almaty, our closest neighbor in CAMCA. Turkey is obviously there not because it's CAMCA, because it's probably the country through which most of you who came from the other CAMCA countries, had to transfer to get here. There may be some flights between Afghanistan that could help, but then you'd have to get on the small plane to Mongolia. So how can we have and envision more connectivity with so little air connectivity? I know we have now the middle corridor underway, and that's very important, especially with the restrictions on the transfer of goods through road routes and railroads and routes in Russia, and we hope that goes. But clearly, what we need to do is get more connectivity. If, as was said earlier, if Mongolia is to be a gateway from the eastern side of Asia into the region, you got to have more than one little airline flying a couple times a week. We need to get the state carrier or others and private interests to fly in. And in that regard, what is this? United. It's the symbol of United Airlines, and as the Deputy Prime Minister mentioned earlier this morning, they began flights to Mongolia from the United States last month. This is a start. Now maybe we now have to use that to feed more people in from North America and enable them to fly on into other countries in the region. So I want to envision more air connectivity. Next question, what is this? It's a map, of course, and it has Japan on my right, and your right, and Europe on the left, and a couple of blue spots in the middle. Not airline, no. Okay, what is one of the businesses of one of the most talked about men in the United States? Starlink. Someone say it? These are the countries currently served by Starlink, which enables internet connections to come from the sky and not from a fiber optic cable. When you think about the challenges of communication or data transmission, if you haven't good relations with your partners in terms of Mongolia to the north or to the south and east, of getting data to the rest of the world or to one another in the region, you need to have satellite connections. We don't have them other than the Caucasus and Mongolia for the CAMCA. Now I understand there's some plans to have Starlink going into Kazakhstan this year or next year.
It was signed, I think the news is that it was signed last week only in Kazakhstan.
So that's a start. Next question. What is this? Sorry? Sorry? Production of beverages. Wow. It does look like a brewery. Maybe that's what they really do there. This is a data center, right? And why do we need data centers? Because of AI, right? Everybody's moving toward AI. The thing for the 20 years of the banking sector, we've moved from cash to all transactions to almost no cash for transactions. Everything's being done digitally. We're doing credit scoring using AI models, etc. The world is moving with AI and we know it. What does AI need? And we'll talk about. Okay, next question. Where is this? 1,000 meters average altitude, 3,000 hours a year of sunlight.
Renewable energy.
Pardon?
Renewable energy.
Where is this?
Mongolia.
It's West Texas. Why West Texas? It looks a lot like Mongolia and has the same characteristics and maybe in parts of the countries of CAMCA. Why is that? Because data centers are being put into these locations in the United States because the ability to create energy to run the data centers. AI will require in the next 4 years the amount of electricity that is now the annual consumption of Germany. And as was mentioned earlier, Mongolia has the ability potentially to generate 2.6 terawatt of renewable energy, which would be currently 40% of the electricity consumption of China, 30 or 40%. So how does this relate to connectivity? Well, you can, and how does it relate to potential, not only for Mongolia, but perhaps for other countries? Use renewable energy to run data centers. Of course, now the data's here. We got to get it to our home base. Maybe it's regionally. We have 100 million people market in CAMCA. Maybe that's enough. Or maybe it has to be beamed back to Europe or the United States. Next question. I'm not that. They didn't show it. The next point was that not only will we have Starlink perhaps in the other countries, but Mongolia will be getting a geopositioned satellite provided by a French company. There's been an agreement signed next year. So it'll be a stable satellite from which you can beam the data up, and you don't have to worry about restrictions on use of fiber optic cable. So this is a potential that Mongolia will have for itself, also for helping connectivity in the region, and perhaps is an opportunity for the other countries. Next question is, I already showed it, but what is this? Ytterby. Anybody know? It's a Swedish word. Ytter means outer and by means village, outer village. This is what it looks like. It's on a little island outside of Stockholm in the archipelago. And why is it important? Because in the late 18th century, they were digging in these rocks and they found all kinds of things called rare earth elements. And the ones on the right are the ones that were found in Ytterby. And they all have names that have something to do with either Ytterby or Sweden, a Swedish name, scandium, holmium for Stockholm, etc. This is the key thing. When I talked about the United States, when we talk about Sweden, when we talk about Europe, what do they want? Rare earths. Who has them? Currently, the main producer is, of course, is China. Supposedly 40 million tons of reserves of rare earths. Mongolia, the US Geological Survey said it's 30 million tons, potentially. Kazakhstan, 20 million. Okay, the rest of the Central Asian countries also have significant reserves, still to be proved, still to be developed. The question is, how do we get them out? How do we do them? How do we process them cleanly? And here I talk about regional cooperation because, as I envision it, we may need something like the European coal and steel community of 1951, when after the World War in Europe, to avoid the kind of problems that led to it, which is competition over steel and coal production, the countries band together, 6 countries, to create a union which, for that activity, which later became the European Union. So I would think we have to think clearly, and with the international banks that finance these activities, with the governments in the countries, we need to set some standards of how we develop these resources, how they're financed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Probably have an
Randolph.
arrangement to cooperate to develop what we're going to need a lot of in the future. So that's my vision for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Randolph. It's like a trailer of our next, these 2 days discussions. So each of these topics will be further unpacked. There will be dedicated sessions on this. And let's discuss further. And I would like to dig a little further into the sectors of Mongolia. Dulguun, can you please tell us what opportunities, and maybe highlight a couple of sectors and what opportunities they offer?
Thank you very much. There are quite a bit of opportunities. I always look at from the efficiency point of view. So if I rank all the sectors in Mongolia according to its productivity, it's very different. For example, agricultural sector productivity versus mining sector productivity, there is a 10 times difference. What it means is Mongolian mining sector productivity is closer to the international benchmark. The agriculture one is way behind. So when you look at the sector that's way behind, that means there is significant opportunity. I'll tell you in numbers. In Mongolia, the average person working in agriculture creates value added of about $6,000. In the United States, that's $100,000. We are talking about 18 times difference. And that difference is because of the capital intensity of the sector, as well as the know-how and the knowledge and the management of the people operating in the country. Just for example, like a friend of mine runs a Terol resort, and he hired cleaners to clean the room. And one person joined his team recently. And that person worked in Korea in the hotel sector, hospitality sector before. And he cleans the room 3 times faster at a better quality. And that's productivity. And which is also the reason behind the GDP per capita differences among the CAMCA countries. I'll just add you one statistics. One of the top productivity country within CAMCA region is Kazakhstan. But the Kazakhstan productivity level is still half of advanced countries on average. So we have so much to improve, and investment is the key to increasing productivity. And whatever sectors that's falling behind, there is a great opportunity.
Thanks, Dulguun. We will keep on zooming in, but at this point, I would like to zoom out a bit and ask Mikheil. You represent a large, conservative, long-term investor, Cerberus fund. And number of years ago, your fund chose 2 smallest, and I would say niche countries of the CAMCA region, Georgia and Mongolia. Can you tell us why, how this happened, and what governments did right to attract investments from your fund?
Thank you. Thank you for this question, Saule. I was actually thinking about that when I first came here. I'm first time in Mongolia, right? Why these 2 countries for the company like Cerberus, which is known for its, traditional sort of conservative sort of private equity sort of type of approach. And I think there is multiple reasons for that. There are multiple reasons. In some ways, it's a coincidence as well, right? Because of the history. Prior to us being acquired by, being Cerberus, we've been sort of much smaller U.S. private equity shop, which was based and had offices in Tbilisi and in Ulaanbaatar. But thinking more, digesting information, what the panelists, especially today, the distinguished panelists have been sort of underlining, I think another factor is obviously the reforms on a political as well as economical level. And I think what's also very, very interesting to mention and important to mention is state participation in the economy. I think these 2 countries managed to basically privatize, most of their economy, right? What you see in other CAMCA countries, unfortunately, I don't know the exact details, but I can definitely talk about Central Asia, where I've been traveling a lot since last few years, right? The participation of, private, side in the economy is still very low. And this basically, I think is one of the major sort of like obstacles, what I see, because, and potential as well, right? So when you talk about, opportunity, when you talk about, that this is the obstacle, you need to talk on the other side opportunity as well. And seeing that countries sort of opening up, we see this trend in Uzbekistan, for example, finding the right sort of partners in this privatization process, I think is important. And, companies like us, I think, will have a sort of more leeway or more sort of like a spend to participate in building those economies and helping these economies to sort of like grow and become more productive to Dulguun, whatever he just said, yeah.
So opening the markets. For those who don't know, Cerberus invested in the mini hydro project in Georgia back several years ago and in a consumer sector of Mongolia. Privatization, you mentioned privatization, and I would like to now turn our attention to Uzbekistan and the country that has been leading reforms since 2016, the opening, welcomed mega investments, including in the very essential sector, energy. And the person who helped facilitate those concessions and big deals is Umid. Umid, what did Uzbekistan do right to attract and keep the momentum? Previous week we were in Uzbekistan listening to the new initiatives, privatization, the fund that they're looking to create. What do you think? Can you share that experience of Uzbekistan with us? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. The right thing they did is actually the government realized that they don't have resources or expertise to conduct, for example, tenders for the infrastructure projects. So when we did IFC scaling solar program, it was easily to scale, quick to realize. It was actually cheap. So when we were done with the tender, which was like 6 months, we received a benchmark for the tariff, which was the lowest ever in Central Asia. So the government,
I remember that lowest 2.67.
Yeah, at that time, so tariff. It was a solar PV plant. It was a pilot project, but everyone was just stunned, and they realized that they can do it cheap, fast, and efficient. So usually you get any of this, but not all of them. And it didn't cost anything to the government, by the way, because the services of IFC advisory were paid by the winning bidder. Even with this cost being incorporated in the tariff apparently was lower than the citizens have been paying to the government for the energy. So basically, it was win-win-win situation for everyone, and the government realized, okay, let's do it with other infrastructure projects, and you cannot really scale and start the privatization program from nowhere. You have to put Uzbekistan on the map after a long break with stagnation. So you have to put it on the map. So the next step for the government was basically, okay, why don't we try capital markets? And so the Minister of Finance issued first sovereign Eurobonds. And basically, when you see from the angle of local law, you realize that it's not only just that instrument you put on the international exchange, you actually institutionalize it. Because to do that, the government needs to procure a long credit rating. They have to change the legislation. They have to allow it. And by the way, they have to path the way for others to issue sovereign Eurobonds for Uzbek banks and Uzbek corporations. And just by way of background, Uzbekistan has not seen mass privatization before. Like, for example, in Kazakhstan, so a major player on the ground is actually state. And all the projects we did are state-driven. They are state-guaranteed or state-supported. But they do it gradually. They just don't rush with idea with vouchers and privatization to anyone. There is a definite list of the key state corporations that want to go to IPO. Another list for those who will go for sale or for privatization, even for assets deal, not for the share deal. And this is basically what attracts people from around the world. And when you have a DFI on your side, like IFC, for example, they bring investors with them. You don't really need to market it. So that's what was done right. And next, Next step after the debt market is, of course, equity market. This is what we are seeing right now, and it's more of the commitment of the government to institutionalize the changes, amend the laws, allow minority shareholding, allow portfolio shareholdings, allow foreign investors to come simply for arbitrage or for anything else.
Hopefully, Uzbek government keeps the good reforms coming.
Well, yes and no. So basically, when you have a tender and you get the benchmark price for any infrastructure project, I'm not talking about the energy, for example. We just done the Urgench airport for the PPP project and
About connectivity.
yeah, and South Korean Incheon was announced as a winning bidder. And they basically, finalizing the discussions. And again, it's an airport which was offered for PPP to international market. It was structured well. It's now transparent, and you have a benchmark, documentation, benchmark changes in legislation and other things, and even tariff. So what the government does also in parallel, they do bilateral deals, which are not that transparent, but or efficient, to say. So basically, that runs in parallel right now. This is actually undermining the tender opportunities, by the way. So I'm not a big fan of this move.
Thank you, Umid. We'll ask you more on this, but I would like to now zoom in a bit and go back to Dulguun. Dulguun, our countries are reaching 35 years independence next year. First generation entrepreneurs, they are reaching their 60 years and they have already grown their children, and hopefully we'll see successions. But also, does it mean that there are regional players who can bring capital, including to Mongolia? Like, is there space for Kazakh companies to come to Mongolia? And if so, where, what to bring, where to look at, and how to succeed in Mongolia?
Thank you, good question. And we already have a CAMCA fellow invested in Mongolia and created Dodo Pizza in Mongolia, serving local market. And it's a success story, I would say. But in general, how we divide the FDIs, there are 4 types of FDI. Resource seeking, strategic asset seeking, market seeking, and efficiency seeking. Dodo Pizza, for example, is a market seeking, meaning they come, invest, and serve the local market. And there is plenty of opportunity among CAMCA countries to invest in market seeking FDI. But most importantly, what's even greater value and the greater potential is efficiency seeking. For example, Mongolia has the longest border with China. And if, for example, Azerbaijani, if there is a factory in Azerbaijan that export to China, why not build in Mongolia and export to China? Another example, we have an economic partnership agreement with Japan. Under this economic partnership agreement, Mongolia can export 10,000 items to Japan without import tariff. Plus, we can export around 7,200 products to Europe without any import tariff. Those ones are exceptional to Mongolia, and if CAMCA countries or other countries invest in Mongolia in seeking efficiency, then we can tap this potential to Japan, to Europe, and as well as China. We don't have any economic agreement or bilateral agreements with China yet, but it may come. But until then, we have enough opportunities. That last point, there isn't much exported, and we are not using enough of those economic partnership or what we call GSP plus to Europe. Why? Because we do not, in Mongolia, locally, we do not have enough knowledge and management to create standard products to Japan and to Europe. So there is advantage, there is potential, but we are not utilizing it up to its potential.
Thanks, Dulguun. Dodo Pizza is absolute great example, and it's a JV between our two CAMCA fellows, Saina from Mongolian side and Ruslan from Kyrgyz side. Kudos to you guys doing the deal. And I don't know if you noticed, but on Randolph's slides, there was shown zero connectivity from Kyrgyzstan to Mongolia. So Sana and Ruslan, next on you is to do the flights, okay? And since you mentioned Azerbaijan, I would like to give a floor to my friend who is on the board of few Azerbaijani conglomerates. Fuad, can you please, who is in the room here, and tell us about the investments, regional investments of the Azerbaijani companies?
A second, can you hear me? Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the interesting panel. And I would like to ask a couple of questions. Dulguun, first of all, it was great to also see your presentation yesterday with the interesting statistics which covers a broader CAMCA region. And also as a professional who worked previously on stock exchanges, mostly with the Security Exchange Committee in States, I know you have brought the connections with Hong Kong, for example, as one of the significant regional players. We have also in Baku Stock Exchange, and I know our colleagues from the CAMCA regions have a similar experience. What do you think we can have, opportunities to create across the CAMCA within the stock exchange frame? And what is your view on building up with the external large developed markets like Hong Kong you already building established? Like, what do you think of mutual opportunities in that respect within the stock exchange framework and with the bigger markets like in Asia region? Thank you.
Mongolian Stock Exchange is not just only stock exchange, but we also trade commodities. The commodity trading started just 3 years ago, until 2023. And if our history is, the stock exchange started in 1995, basically. But we don't, still, I believe we do not have enough know-how and enough experience to share or even in that case lead other CAMCA countries' stock exchange. That's my personal view. But that doesn't mean we cannot invest in each other. Just the investment in real sector, I just answered in the previous question. Now I'm talking about investing in the financial sector. What Mongolia Stock Exchange is doing is we're trying to create direct market access. But I apologize, our CAMCA fellows here, we create that direct market access for investors in advanced country economies first, and then for our CAMCA countries later. We are aiming for Europe, especially London, and we're still talking with Korea and Japan. So that would be the first step, which means if we attract investors in these advanced economies into Mongolia, and they can buy stocks, bonds, government bonds, or even trade commodities, then the liquidity depth will be deeper. Now in Mongolia, we still have very shallow market, meaning if you want to sell that shares you bought, depending if it's a large size, you can't sell it in a day. So that's our aim. The second, we're just talking about yesterday about the Kyrgyz Stock Exchange. And it's a private. Mongolian Stock Exchange is 66% state-owned and 34% public-owned. They were talking about the management or changing management of Kyrgyz Stock Exchange. Maybe we might be interested, I'm not sure. But that's kind of the way which we can share each other's experience. The best, in my opinion, the best case is what if all of our CAMCA countries sell our shares to big stock exchange like NASDAQ or London. In that case, they will provide the latest technology, latest management know-how, so that if we share the same technology, we even create a Euro-like network where any European investor invest in each other's stock exchange, in each other's companies. That's possible. But I don't see that in coming 5 years, maybe after that. We still have a lot to learn here.
Good luck with that. That's okay. We can wait, especially because meanwhile, Azerbaijani capital is investing into real estate projects in Uzbekistan, in Kazakhstan, as they've been announcing. I want to now ask Mikheil. We met 2 years ago in Almaty on the same panel, and at that time you were looking to scope opportunities in the CAMCA region. So let me ask you, how has been your progress so far? Have you booked any deals? How is the market? And have you adjusted your return or risk tolerance expectations since then?
Yes, that's that's a very interesting question, right? And I obviously sort of 2 years have passed, and that's in some ways a long period, in some ways it's a short period, right? But the short answer is no, we have not found any interesting sort of opportunities for us to invest. The reasons are various, right? It can be, I don't know, starting from our conservativeness. In general, as you know, as the audience knows, you know, private equity approach investing into companies is very, very stringent, an underwriting process is very sort of, you know, very, very thorough. And that requires, you know, the companies and, you know, the sponsors to have, you know, like all these sort of processes lined up, right? This is on private equity side. On the other side, you see that, you know, the companies in the region, in CAMCA region, and I believe this is more or less sort of relevant to emerging markets, that the pricing that sponsors are requesting is usually sort of overvalued, and you know, there are reasons obviously for that. I don't think we can talk about these reasons right now, but this is the fact, right? You come across to sort of valuations that basically sort of usually are not acceptable for like a Western private equity sort of investors. What else can be the reason, right? Exits, right? I think for as you guys know, for us as a financial institution, right, it's very important to know what is the exit path, right? Visibility towards the exit, I would say, is one of the first sort of obstacles for us to try and find the suitable opportunities in this region, in CAMCA. Unfortunately, this is still sort of a big question mark in all the investments that we've made so far. You mentioned our investment portfolio in hydropower infrastructure in Georgia. You know, we've been holding this infrastructure for 10 years now, and still the visibility where to sort of exit, like there is, you know, no stock exchange locally or regionally. For international stock exchange, this is not a huge asset. So to list, still the region is, you know, exotic for Western investors. When I mean public investors. So there are a lot of challenges, and strategics, like strategics who would come, still they are, you know, like afraid or, well, I mean, maybe it's not the right word, but they are still testing the waters before they will come to our region. So I think what's important is to show the precedents, right? I mean, and this is super important because this creates a history and track record on which, you know, other companies from the West, when I'm talking on the West, you know, all the reputable investors, they look at each other, right? What is the story? What is the precedent, right? And once you create these precedents, successful precedents, as we say, in the West, success breeds success, right? And more companies will be coming to sort of try to invest, and that's how I believe, you know, this economy will start to function in a way that will be more efficient, more know-how will be coming, and mentioned by Dulguun, you know, liquidity, right? The liquidity event is you know, like will be coming, and the you know, IPOs will be coming up as well. So it's a chain that is connected between each other. And yeah, private equity is at the beginning of this stage in this country, and hopefully, like down the road, we'll see more transactions, including ourselves investing into CAMCA region broadly.
Thanks, Michael. So not only entry investments are important, the important milestones are still to come. It's important to set important good precedents with the returns. Hopefully, CAMCA will deliver good precedents for your portfolio. Umid, I would like to turn to you. You are the lawyer. You have negotiated those deals with the Chinese, Gulf investors, you name it. What is it that, and Michael said that he hasn't found an opportunity in the last 2 years. What is it that we don't understand as the side counterpart that is looking to attract investments when those investors come to sit at the table?
Yeah, very good question. Okay, I've been working on public side, on the private side, but also on lenders. So when you see that the lenders and private side are usually aligned more or less, but the government, they have the issue that they do not always coordinate with each other. So the bottleneck for most of the projects we do is actually on the government side, on the public side. They have a bottleneck for the decision making or for transactional support, etc. Because, you know, you have lots of projects, simply lots of projects in infrastructure, water management, you know, solid waste management, airports, roads, everything, energy, and you have to take the decision at a certain level, and those decisions are stuck. So you cannot, you have to take responsibility, and you know, no bureaucrat likes responsibility or change. So this needs a more commitment from the government in terms of commitment to the reform, commitment to the change, and having the investor-friendly decisions. So probably this is the biggest part. I just wanted to mention that actually if you look at the portfolio of investors themselves, which are inbound, you find it fascinating how the appetite is different depending where they come from. So for example, Gulf region guys, they are looking actually for level playing field. They say, well, we want to be on the same page with, let's say, Chinese. We are ready to compete. Chinese don't want a level playing field. They want a bilateral deal. We do it directly with you. Okay, give us a benchmark price. We'll see how we can handle it. Europeans are actually thinking from the bankability perspective. They're doing nothing from equity. They're saying, well, we'll go to those banks which actually arranged the tender, IFC, BRD, ADB. We will get cheap financing, and then whatever bank says, banks say, we will take it to the government. So, but overall, you see a general trend for two or three things. They want predictability, so nothing really changes dramatically. And second, you want, of course, transparency, because you cannot get financing for the project which is not procured transparently.
Thanks, Umid. interesting insights. I think we're close to nearing the session, but I still would like to draw your attention to Mongolia, although this is a regional forum. And Dulguun, we didn't get much time to discuss, but the 14 mega projects, can you talk briefly about them? And not only explain context to us, is it a next 30-year strategy of the government? And is there opportunities for regional investors there?
I hear one question, but I hear two parts. The first, what are the 14 mega projects and is it good for the economy? My answer is it depends. There are 14 projects, you easily find a list, starting with a hydropower plant, railway connectivity to China, etc. So why I'm saying whether those all 14 projects good for economy or not, when I say it depends, what it depends on whether it solves Mongolia's bottlenecks or not. As long as it solves the Mongolia's bottleneck in terms of transport, in terms of power supply, those ones are really good for the economy. Some of one or two, I would say, I wouldn't call the name, is not improving either reducing bottleneck or increasing efficiency. Back in the day, Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese leader, once said, whether cat is black or white doesn't really matter as long as it catches mice. So my saying is those projects, mega projects, are good as long as they're reducing bottleneck and increasing efficiency. The second part, whether CAMCA countries have any chance or any opportunity involvement in this mega projects, I would definitely say yes. That's a discrete answer. Why? Because our policy is a diversification of investment that's coming into Mongolia. We don't want to depend investment coming from specific single country, or as long as that there is a diversification, that's good. But the question is, what can other CAMCA countries can offer to Mongolia? In terms of cost, can you beat China? If you can beat China in building bridge, building railway, building hydro station, hydro power plant, then definitely that would be preferential to Mongolia and the Mongolian government policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my fellow panelists, for this insightful discussion. Very excited about the mega projects of Mongolia. 5 to 6% growth projected, 1 million tourists visiting, and huge infrastructure needs. So hopefully investments will follow, and this is the forum to discuss those opportunities in the next 2 days. And there will be further sessions on connectivity, on rare earth minerals, where the discussions will be further deepened. Do we have time for a couple of questions? We don't, right? Yeah, but our panelists will be available throughout the 2 days. Please feel free to discuss bilaterally and offline. Thank you.